Alrighty, I've let this thing sit for 20 hours. So at this point, if it's not all, oxidized in here, then I've just used up all of the rust reformer, and it's just not going to do any more good. But I think this means we are good to drain all of this mung out of here, wash this stuff with water, drain it as best as I can of all the water, maybe blow some air through it and that kind of stuff. And then we're going to wash it with, I guess, isopropyl alcohol and then acetone. I got to see which one of those is miscible with water and which isn't. I know alcohol is, so I've got denatured alcohol, so I'll rinse it with that. And then I think we'll follow it with acetone because that should do a little bit better. I kind of don't want to do the acetone because, one, it stinks, and two, it'll peel some of this paint off. So I'll see if I can get it all done with the denatured and isopropyl alcohol I have. And then at that point, it should be ready once I let it air dry for the sealer. And so my goal is to, pull that tape off the bottom, one thing. Once I get everything rinsed and clean, and then clean up that whole bottom, and then put some fresh tape right back on the bottom of it. And then we're just going to send this sealer and see how well we do. And we'll have to I'll let it sit here until next weekend. And if we're lucky, it should all seal and we should all be good. And then it's just time to paint the thing, pour some gas in it, and make sure it's all right. And if that fails, then we're going to braze all these holes in the bottom. All right, so it's looking fairly decent up here at the mouth, but going down in there, it's not the best. It's not perfect. I think we had more rust than we had rust reformer. So we're just gonna wing it. The bottom looks to be okay. I think after swishing some water through there, a lot of that's probably just surface scale that should knock off. I think run the water through there, dry it with the acetone, air dry it. I think we're gonna be fine to seal it. And like I said, if not, we'll just braze these fucking things on here. All right, so I washed out as much of the rust reformer as I could, and I've just got it sitting here in as much sun as we have today on this cool November day. And I'm just blowing air through it so that I can get some, cycling and hopefully heat it up enough. I need to drain the thing out of there because I'm sure there's oh my God, that does not look good. But it's on the lower section, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. But I think I should probably aim this thing a little bit lower down. We're going to let this thing air dry for a little bit, and I'm going to use some compressed air as well to speed things along, as well as clear out all the passageways, and then we'll move on to the flammable stuff. Alrighty, so I put about 4 or 5 ounces of turpentine through it, which was a mistake because it smells nice, but it's stinky, and I'm sure that's leaving some kind of residue. It is turpentine after all. I have run about 4 to 5 ounces of turpentine through this thing, and probably about 20 ounces of denatured alcohol. And this is what my denatured alcohol is looking like coming out now. It's still a little rusty, it's still a little cloudy, it's still got chunks in it, but I don't think there's anything I'm going to be able to do to get all these chunks out. This thing is not designed to be cleaned. It is all flat-sided. There is no, low end point where stuff can settle where I could, get this shit out of here. And I don't want to hear anyone ever talk shit about Gorilla Tape again, because this has been on here through all of that, rust treatment, all the turpentine, all the denatured alcohol, and it's only just barely leaking in a couple of places. This stuff is a trooper. So anyway, the next step, after I'm done forcing air through here to dry this thing out, is I'm gonna run acetone through it, because acetone will get absolutely everything, and once the acetone comes out clear, then I know that we're good, and I'll just force air dry this thing for a couple more hours, and then we'll come back in here, and it'll be time to seal it. The acetone will, of course, eat all of the Gorilla Tape through. If the Gorilla Tape holds up to the acetone, that would be miraculous, but I'm gonna run a fair bit of that through it, and then the last slug, I'm gonna pull all that tape off, and then swish it through there, and then we're gonna wipe all the tape residue off. And that should hopefully be all the prep work. Okay, so since today ended up being an uncharacteristically nice fall day, and it's like 75 out with a light breeze and overcast, I don't have the glaring South Carolina sun to dry this thing for me. So we're going to have to resort to the heat gun. Now, this thing gets hot enough to melt lead, because I've melted lead with it before. So I'm a little worried about this, and the fact that this can probably heat the acetone in here up to ignition temperature. So I'm probably going to start with just keeping this thing at a distance, but this thing should be able to dry this son of a bitch out in like 10-15 minutes, if that. So we're just going to cut her on and just let it go. All right, so I just switched the thing to cool because it's worrying me a little bit. We'll put it back to hot. I just looked up the auto ignition temperature of acetone, and it's like 860 something degrees, and lead melts at 620, and that thing can barely melt lead. So I think that thing's only getting up to like 700 degrees Fahrenheit. So if this little acetone is still trapped in there, I think we should be all right. Well, it might be creating a pocket up there. I think I might turn this thing and have it blow into that hole so that that hole can vent. It's probably safer. And when I say this thing gets hot, I mean it. Like, what was that, like 2 seconds and it just melted plastic? So this thing should be nice and toasty. How's that feel? That's about, let's try about 85, 90 degree air coming out of there. So should get nice and toasty. Well, I left her for like 10 minutes to go wash my hands and get some liquor, and I went to pick it up and turn it and burnt the piss out of my fingers. So that ends like 200 something degrees right now. So I have a feeling that we have probably boiled off all of the acetone, but I'm just gonna let it go for another 10-15 minutes to be double extra safe. Then we're gonna let it cool down to room temp, and I think we'll be as ready as we ever will be. My plan with dealing with this hole, with these holes on the bottom now, is to put a small little tab of, aluminum foil tape over it, and then cover that with a larger piece of Gorilla Tape, and then I plan to just fucking paint over the whole damn thing, Gorilla Tape and all, because why not? Tank's already kind of fucked. It's probably better off with the Gorilla Tape, and the Gorilla Tape will, prevent adhesion. So, or I don't know. I want something on there that the epoxy can adhere to whenever it's setting, and I feel like a piece of aluminum tape is probably much better than a piece of a Gorilla Tape for the epoxy to cure to. And then once I have that in place, then, having a piece of Gorilla Tape over that will hold that in place, because the adhesive on that isn't really great. And then we'll just paint over the top of that, and hell, I might just put a couple strips of tape on the bottom of the thing after I put, the first thing of tape, then the second thing of tape, and then paint it all. Then I'll put a couple layers of tape, and then that will be a vibration dampener on the bottom that'll prevent it from eroding through from sitting there and vibrating. And a little bit of foam on it or something. I don't know. This is either going to work perfectly and it's all overkill, or it's going to be a complete farce. So tape's not going to hurt anything long term if we have it on there. The epoxy's either going to work or it's not. So that's my plan. All right. This sucker's been cooking for like 30 minutes. We're just going to let that thing cool off. And I'm going to say this is done and we're ready for the sealant. All right. All the holes have been taped out with aluminum tape. I think I'm just going to do the aluminum tape and not do another layer of Gorilla Tape on it. This stuff seems to be adhering pretty well. And I think we're ready to fill this thing up. Sealant finally. So it says to swish around, coat everything, and then dump it out for 30 minutes, and then let it sit for 4 days, which I feel like it's missing some steps. Like, how long am I supposed to swirl it around for, etc., etc. Whatever. We'll figure it out. I think I'm just going to, I'm gonna pour half of this can in here. This is 16 ounces. 8 ounces does a 5-gallon tank. This is a 5-gallon tank. I feel like I'm probably not going to get fully good coating, but then it additionally says to drain out the excess. So yeah, I don't really know. I feel like I should just go for broke. I'm probably, well, see, I have two options here. I can use half of this, and then if it half works, then I can pour the other half in and then put a second layer in there, and that'll definitely work. So I think I'm just gonna do that. I'm gonna do the 8 ounces. We're gonna swirl it around. Really, I just need to coat the bottom. The top is not the leak point. Neither of the sides are the leak point. It's just the bottom. So I think we should be good with the 8 ounces. So that's what I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna pour it in there, swirl it around, swirl it around, swirl it around, swirl it around, etc., etc., etc. drain out any excess, and then just let it sit like this, and hopefully get it level as well. And that should do something. I hope, I pray. All right, so I got the filler neck all wrapped up. I've got everything taped off. I found 2 more tape spots under here on account of the fact that I got sealant all over my hand when I was swishing it. All those are taped up. Doesn't appear that I missed any on the bottom, and we are just slowly rotating this thing from one side to the other, trying to coat as much of this thing as we possibly can. So I'm just trying to waterfall it down one side to the other. No idea how long this stuff is going to stay liquid, so I plan on just rotating this stuff until I don't hear it dripping anymore. It says to drain out the excess, but I don't really know what that means. I don't know how much it means. I probably put in about 12 ounces of this, so it should be significantly more than it needs, but I feel like it would be much better to have like an 1/8 inch thick crust on the bottom of this thing than not. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, although that's probably not best for the epoxy's, cure rate, but whatever. We'll figure it out. All right, so I've been swirling this thing around in here for about an hour, and it sounds like it's mostly set and stuck to everything, so I think we're going to peel the tape off and just see what in the world we're dealing with in here. This stuff is very sticky, very tacky. It definitely needs however long they say for it to cure, because I got a little bit on the floor, and it's still tacky. Still tacky on my hand, even though I've washed my hand with pumice soap already, so that's exciting. Whoo! Building up some pressure. How's she look down in there? Oh, well, it looks pretty well coated in there. So that's a good sign. I think we're just gonna let it air out. Not rotate it any more than we already have. I want as much to cure on the bottom as I can. And this is where we get rid of the rusty vinegar. Drinky, little 550 gallon fuel tank with 5 holes in the side of it. All this will get converted into carbon dioxide pretty much, as it dissolves all the lead and other funk that's been sitting in this tank since 1960. Creeping along. Have I mentioned that filming inside of this fuel tank is a massive pain in my ass? So it appears like there's a lip on this filler neck, which I was expecting on account of the fact that I could never fully drain this thing, because I just spun this thing 360 degrees and it didn't even get a drop into the filler neck. So that's interesting. But anyway, we've been going for about an hour and a half now, and I can't drain it on account of the fact that I can't get anything out of the filler neck. So anywho, we're gonna turn it upside down. We're gonna leave it more or less like this, probably cocked about there, and just see what the heck happens. But I'll see if I can drain it. If not, then we're gonna have a big old fat thick layer on the bottom of this thing. Alright, so I just tried to drain this thing for like 15 minutes and not a single thing even came into the filler neck, so there's definitely a lip on the filler neck. So I can't drain this thing, which means I'm just gonna keep swishing it. I really shouldn't have put 12 ounces in there, because now I have 3 ounces too much. If I had put damn 8 in there like the thing calls for, I would have had the perfect amount and I wouldn't have to deal with whatever excess is in here now. But we're just going to keep rotating this thing back and forth until this thickens up enough that we don't have to worry about it. Go be a moth out here. All right, bud. All right, so I've kind of just been rotating this thing for like the last 3 hours. And I think I'm just going to let it sit and just fill up the whole bottom of this thing in resin and just see how well it does. But, it's looking pretty good down in there. Just wish it was a little bit not so thick on the bottom, because that's going to take forever to cure, and I don't want to. I'm really trying to get as many coats of this on here as I can so that it doesn't take, 2 weeks or something to cure. I really don't want to fuck this up, but kind of don't have another option right now. I'm running out of scotch, and as soon as we're out of that, I ain't sitting in here anymore. All right, so it appears that the resin is pretty much set. I don't see a whole pool of resin on there anymore. Why do I keep saying resin? Epoxy, whatever the hell it is, sealer. So I think we're pretty good as far as this being set. So with that being said, I'm going to do one last wire brushing across this thing just to break off, you know, rust clods. And then I'm going to hit the outside of this thing with some rust reformer, you know, just everything on the exterior, because why waste the time? I'm already sitting here and have it ready to turn over later. But I'm just going to let it sit pretty much like this for another hot minute. Well, all of this epoxy cures, and we'll turn that fan on over there just to make sure that we have ample airflow across this thing, and just let it sit. And that's the plan, is it's just gonna sit here for the rest of the week. All right, so I killed an entire can of rust reformer, and look at that. Absolutely beautiful, immaculate paint job. Not a single run in the entire thing. So that should do pretty good. I'm gonna let that harden up a little bit before I rotate it back up. And also, FYI, I am running all of these fans while I'm doing this. I just can't do it while I'm recording because it fucks the audio. But holy fuck, am I getting high off of fucking paint fumes. And am I drunk? Shit. Paint flecks. My favorite thing to have in scotch. Alrighty, I've been fucking around with this fuel tank for like 7 hours. I think we're done. This looks pretty good. Squint distance, this jammed up underneath, you know, a cab and underneath the seat over here. This looks brand spanking new. So that's good enough for me. We're gonna twist this little cap off and let her air dry for the next couple of days, and then hopefully we're done. Alrighty, well, this thing has been air drying and curing now for about 115 hours. So I think that's probably good, considering it said to give it at least 96. And I just got the new fuel tank cap in. Everything is painted. So I think it's high time we put her float back in, test fuel tank cap, throw a couple gallons of gas in it, and see whether or not this pig will run off of the tank. But before we do that, I also need to replace the radiator fan switch because I got that in, and I should probably do that before I get the thing hot. So I think we're going to start with that, but first I'm going to make sure everything fits on here. Damn, that looks pretty good. Time for a beer. Great, I spilled it everywhere. But that looks like a proper fuel tank with a rusty fuel tank gauge. Don't look at that. Stop looking at it. Well, there we go. Looks pretty good. So plan is I'm going to put the last of my gum out in there and fill this thing up to the brim with ethanol-free gas once we get this thing back in there. But before we throw it back in the mule, we're going to do the fan switch because it should probably do that before I run this thing and get hot. So let's do that right quick. All right, so I got the side skid plate off and I disconnected the harness from the fan switch, and I've loosened the fan switch, so it's just coming off by hand. My plan is with this, since that is exposed to coolant, is to just take it off really fast and then put this in really fast so I don't lose all that much coolant. And then whatever's in there will just get burped out naturally. Or it'll find its way on top of something somewhere and trigger something and really throw me for a loop for the next 6 hours while I try and figure out why the thing's overheating, and it's because there's a bubble in the cooling system. But we won't think about that. So the fan switch itself is 1 1/16, and that one was in there with just like 5 foot-pounds of force. You know, it has an O-ring on it, so it seals. So really all it has to do is just seal against, you know, the 15, 16 PSI that's going to be in there, and the O-ring shouldn't be able to do that, so you don't need to grill on it. And with this plate, my strategy for taking it out is I'm not putting this bolt back in because it was rusted in and I had to cut it off with an angle grinder. So it's just part of the frame now, and it's not really necessary. It's back here anyway. It's just a mud flap, so as long as you're not running this thing in reverse continuously, it shouldn't ever be an issue. Like, I mean, it's in this corner, so it's shielded. Nothing. You don't got to worry about it. You don't need this bolt, is what I'm trying to say. Now, on this corner, this is supposed to have a hard angle there and a hard angle there. Well, you know what that does? It makes it impossible to get this damn thing out of here through this thing. So I just hacked those off with a hacksaw so that it's nearly flush. I left a little bit of a corner there. to sit right here on this shelf right there. But I mean, it's held in place by 3 bolts. You don't really need that. You just need that bit of a lip there to sit. But that should make it easier to go in. And then additionally, I bent this because, well, I bent it on the way out, but that makes it easier to go back in. And the way that I'm putting this thing is kind of like, more or less what I'm doing is it's going in, pivoting up, and then this is getting pushed over that lip, and then it's sliding back up in there. You really got to feel for it. There is no easy way to do it. You're just going to have to wing it. But anyway, that's the plan, is we're just going to start spinning this thing off of here, and it's starting to drip coolant now. So I'll just spin it off, spin the new one in. It only goes, doesn't matter which plug you plug on which, it's just a switch. This is just a break in, you know, the electrical contact, so it doesn't matter if you have inlet and outlet over here or here, doesn't make a difference. So should be pretty simple. So we'll swap that out, and that should hopefully be the end of our cooling system issue. All right, well, that sucker's in. Here's the old one. Yeah, I would say that could have failed there. Just only takes a little bit of corrosion to throw off, you know, the heat transfer and how long it takes that bimetallic switch to kick in. So, but that went in, only lost about a shot glass of coolant, and the coolant that came out was all copper chunks. So I think there was just a solid plug of gunk on this, so it probably was getting basically no heat transfer. So switch is more than likely fine. It was just needed to be clean, but for $15 we'll throw in a new one, and that gives me and the owner peace of mind. So all I have to do is finagle this plate back in here, however the heck that goes, and then we can swap in the fuel tank, and we're pretty close to done. I think there's just a couple other minor things like cleaning up the winch switch and a few other things, and she might be ready to go back. All right, and there is fuel tank in, rock solid. It ain't going anywhere. Now we just gotta put some juice in it, and away we should go. Except, I think I'm gonna let this thing sit until tomorrow, maybe. I don't know. Fuck it. We'll do it tonight. It's had 115 hours. If it ain't set, then I don't think it was going to set. So we'll just send it. But the thing I want to figure out right now is what the hell is going on with the hydraulic pump, because I looked and it's apparently not factory. So I have no idea what, you know, model brand of hydraulic pump this thing actually is. So I can't even look up, you know, what parts I need to rebuild this thing, because I'm sure it's just an O-ring or something that's gone bad. So, but yeah, I don't know what the hell it is, so I can't order parts for it. And I can't find a diagram that shows this thing being on here, but this seems, I don't want to say it's factory, but it sure as hell looks like it was supposed to be here. But then again, why does it have this if, you know, it's not? But what is this? So is this the, what is this thing? Is that, okay, yeah, so that's the old stop there. Interesting. Supposed to latch or something. I don't know how that was supposed to work, but got hydraulics now, and they ain't a good way, and ordering up a new set's only like $1,200, so we're gonna replace an O-ring if we can, but that's only if we can figure out what the fuck it even is. So I guess I'm gonna go clean this son of a bitch up and guess we'll pour gas it in the meantime and just see whether or not that thing's gonna melt or not. But so this whole thing is going to need to be flushed, and I'm hoping what I can do is just take these 2 lines off of this cylinder, like, you know, disconnect, take one of these sets of cotter pins off and just set this thing up and set it down there on this manual latch. Pull one of these cotter pins out, probably that, just disconnect the piston, take both of the lines off the piston, and then just, you know, run it down that way to blow all the fluid out. Take whatever garbage is in there and just blow it out into something else. Then once I have that, drain everything I can possibly get out of that reservoir, you know, with the turkey baster and with the sucky boy. Get that totally vacuum evacuated, pour in fresh fluid, then take both of these lines off, and then, or well, one of these lines off, and then just run the pump and blow all that fluid out into an, you know, some other, you know, capture device, some kind of bucket or something, and then until I see fresh hydraulic fluid coming out, then hook it back up, and then pull off the other line, and then blow that line out until, you know, clean hydraulic fluid comes out. And then at that point, look back in here and see what other kind of garbage has been blown back on the return. Well, I guess nothing will be blown back on the return if I'm not actually compressing the piston. And then at that point, I can disconnect both lines, pull this thing out of here, and do whatever I need to do with that. And then I can just, you know, blow fluid through these lines several times and just let this thing clear itself out. And that should be a fairly simple way to purge this thing and flush it. It'll get us 90% of the way here. It's just a hydraulic piston. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. It's not like it's, you know, some sort of life-saving device that's just holding the deck up. So we'll do that, and then once we have that off of here, we can pull this off, clean it, drain it, replace whatever O-rings or seals need to be done, put it all back together, you know, put in some, you know, fresh hydraulic oil, or you burp the thing. I don't know what the procedure is. I never work on hydraulics. And then get it back to go, ready to go. So I don't think that should be too hard. I mean, it's just a hydraulic piston. I should just be able to put some cheap ATF in it and be good to go. Or owner might actually have a jug of hydraulic fluid lying around. I might just go steal that from him. But first things first, I gotta figure out what the hell it is. So I'm gonna clean this thing up and see if we can find a model number or some kind of specs or something somewhere stamped on something. All right, so I decided I want to send this thing back with E-free gas because the landowner says he's only been putting E-free gas in it. So I'm not gonna put my 3 gallons of cheap pump gas in it. So we're gonna wait, give this thing another day and fill it up tomorrow, and then we'll run it around and test it. And I'm gonna put my focus on the hydraulics instead, because that's gonna take a little bit more time. And if I'm lucky, I might be able to figure out some parts tonight, get that on order, and maybe get it back a little bit sooner. I would have loved to have sent this thing back next week. It's probably gonna end up being next week or week after that. Anyway, I'll get it done by Thanksgiving if nothing else, but I gotta find some parts so I can order them. All right, so in the meantime, apart from figuring out the hydraulics, there's 2 things I want to do. One, I want to test to see whether or not the switch works or not. And if it works and it was just corrody, then I'll save it for the next time I have to work on a 1995 Kawasaki Mule, which will probably be never, but hell, might as well save it. It might be worth something later for some other project. But as you can see, currently we are set to connectivity. We are attached to both sides of the switch and nothing's happening. But if I set this up to both sides of the same switch, see, we do it, you know, my multimeter works. But what I'm gonna do right now is I'm just heating up a pot of water, and we're gonna heat this up till it starts boiling. And once it's boiling, we know that it's at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and we'll just put these alligator clips on there and dunk it on in there, let it sit, and see whether or not this guy lights off. Because if that lights off at 212, then we at least know the switch works, you know, somewhere between 212 and, well, wherever the hell the other temp gauge was turning on. So we'll see, but I don't know. If it doesn't turn on with boiling water, then it's no good to me for a fuel system. I'll probably go just grab the map gas and then just clamp it in there and just blast the tip with map gas and see if that does something. And if that does something, then, well, I don't know. I'll probably just throw it out. But I'm curious. I just want to see. Anyway, so I was just over here. I was cleaning off the shaft to inspect it to see, you know, what kind of condition it is. And things are not great. You can see there are chips in the chrome lining, and right there's a pretty substantial ridge, actually 2 ridges where it has gone through. This appears to be a chrome lined piston. It's rusting underneath, so it must not be stainless. So honestly, probably not worth rebuilding. I mean, if it was my machine, I'd just rebuild it anyway, but I don't feel in good conscience right pulling this thing apart to rebuild that, knowing full well that, you know, that piston is shot. I'm still gonna pull it apart and see if I can find some kind of manufacturer's mark, some kind of part number or something on this thing, just so I can run it by the owner. But I'm currently sitting on the point of I don't feel good rebuilding this for someone else, knowing that it's probably just going to shred an O-ring. Like, I mean, that's not a little chip. That's all the way through that damn liner. That is just going to rip the whole O-ring stack to shreds. And then this thing's just going to be piss and fluid. So I think for my time, money, and sanity, I'm just going to flush this thing because, well, the hydraulic fluid is not supposed to look like strawberry milkshake. So yeah, but also clean it up, get part numbers, but I think I'm just gonna flush this thing. All right, the plot thickens. So I found this sticker and there's literally nothing written on it. So I have no model number for the pump. which is, there's nothing on the piston. The piston has no stickers on it whatsoever. If there is a model number, it's stamped on the bottom where I can't see it. And I think I know how water is getting into the system. I don't know how well that shows up with the fact that I'm shaking, but the whole damn reservoir is moving up and down about 1/16 of an inch, and it's just leaking fluid out the seams. So I think what's happening is water is just leaking off the back of this seat and then coming around the edge and then settling on top of this pump and then just flowing in and then going under the oil and then turning all this stuff into strawberry milkshake. And oofta, it's like Pepto-Bismol. So I can suck all of this out of here, but it's an uphill losing battle both ways. I have no part numbers. I looked it up. It's like $1,600 to buy a new conversion kit, and they don't even come with this contraption. It's just a piston. So yeah, I think this is just a pull that old fluid out, throw the cheapest, oldest power steering fluid and ATF mixture I have back in there, and just send it, because when you got that kind of piston corrosion going on and this kind of whatever going on, you have no idea what you even have, so you can't even buy parts. That means you're taking it to a shop, and when you take it to a shop, they're $100 an hour plus, and at that rate, who cares? Just run it and just dump some oil. Like shit, at that point, just throw some fucking vegetable oil in there or some like mineral oil and just run that. I mean, any oil is better than, water. Just throw something in there and run it through the system, that when it ends up dumped in your driveway somewhere, you don't care. Anyway, I'm gonna talk to the owner about that, but yeah, I'm gonna extract that reservoir and just pour in some fresh ATF and call it a day. Oh, look, a wasp. What are you doing on my arm? All right, bye. Gushing granny. Oh, that's like straight water. No wonder it's blowing past. Literally, that is fucking water. Good God. Alrighty, well, all the wax on there appears to be melting and catching fire because I can smell it outside. So I think we're probably pretty good to dunk this thing and test it. Alright, so we're just going to let that sucker sit right there until my voltmeter probes start melting and smoking. And that should theoretically do something, but I mean, this water's basically boiling. We're somewhere around 200, and it's been sitting in there for about a minute or so, and it has not kicked over, so that's not a good sign. So it probably was in fact bad. Alright, I'm going to take the fact that it is literally boiling on the end of the probe right now, and the fact that this thing is not screaming, that's to mean that it doesn't work. Like, if I pull this water off of here, and I just set this motherfucker directly on the damn element, see if that does something. It appears that the answer is no. So I'm going to say this thing is fucked, and we're just going to clamp it in here and then blast it with MAP gas. And if straight MAP gas on this thing doesn't make it beep, then it was FUBAR. Contact. Hey, there she goes. It only needed about whatever that is, 500 degrees before she started beeping. All right, you can stop now. Oh, now it's out again. How about now? There she goes. Yeah, I have fully annealed brass or copper or whatever. You can stop. Thank you. Brass and copper or whatever it is, and melted the O-ring. So yeah, it's fucked, and I'm throwing it in the trash. And ooh man, that is letting off some really putrid smoke. All right, let's go pay attention to something else now. Yeah, that was pretty hot. All right, commence the suck. Oh yeah, she getting the good suck. Well, generally in my experience, that's not what hydraulic fluid is supposed to look like. So I'm gonna find some place to drain this thing, and we're going to put the finest used ATF4 and newest regular ATF plus 3 back into this thing. All right, so my plan here is literally to just have anything that is remotely similar to an incompressible fluid in here, then whatever garbage was in there before. So we're just gonna fill this up. I don't know how I'm supposed to be filling this thing. We're just some used ATF plus 4 that I don't know where the hell it even came out of. I think it came out of the truck. Came out of something, but it was fair enough that, yeah, I'm assuming that seam in there is all the way full. So there's enough in there. But yeah, I'm just going to assume that my lightly used ATF, which I saved, so it must have been, you know, decent enough that it was worth saving, is better than whatever the fuck is currently in there. So let's just run this thing up again and see whether or not it dirties up that fresh oil or not, and or if it just blows a bunch of water back out of this. Don't forget to clean the white slimy stuff off your shaft, fellas. All right, so I've cleaned most of the fucking hydraulic comma, I guess, not a better way to say it, out of there, and we're just gonna send her back down. And push as much of that shit out of there as we can. Probably shouldn't be doing that before I have to work on the rear brakes. But I just plan to cycle this a couple of times to flush everything. Then we'll probably extract it one more time. Ideally, I should be, you know, fully, you know, disconnecting one of these lines and just blowing all this crap out of here, but I'm lazy. So we're just going to consider this a good enough means of purging things. It's looking less like water now, so it's probably a good sign. What does it look like in here now? Well, now it looks like fucking blood, but that's better, I guess. But it's now half empty. So, yeah, I don't know what to do about that. I've gone through half of the thing and it's now opaque. So I seem to be flushing it slow but surely. Yeah, I think we'll just do that a couple of times until it empties that reservoir at a later date. Tell me you got a hydraulic leak without telling me you have a hydraulic leak. All right, so I got both wheels off and I cracked the first bleeder and didn't even do nothing to it. And it's already pissing shitty, nasty brake fluid out of it. So the rears may already work. It may have just been sticky or something. I don't know. Let me try the other one. But, I mean, it's a fairly good sign. Oh, you know, that one's puking fluid too, so I guess the rears work already. I didn't have to bleed them. I wonder why that is. I wonder, because I've got the parking brake on right now. So, parking brake is running off the same mechanism. So I wonder if it's like pulling on something, and maybe, I don't know, maybe the piston is actually coupled to it. So maybe the fact that that is like pulling is like, well, no, because that would be putting vacuum, which would then suck air in. So for whatever reason, there's pressure on the rear brakes and they have fluid to them. So the rear brakes appear to be working. I mean, easy way to test. All right, the rear brakes appear to be dragging because, like, good Christ, it's not supposed to be that bad. What about the other side? Yeah, and I don't got this thing in four-wheel drive, so I don't know what that's about. Of course, it's got some plastic shit on it. I don't know if I can get this drum off, but something appears to be sticky. I'm pretty certain I put this son of a bitch down. So that's down. This hasn't been, I mean, that's an easy way to see whether or not this is working, because if I really can't turn it now, well, it doesn't feel any worse. Maybe slightly. All right, so the old Bluetooth foot doing that. Let's see if yeah, that's markedly worse. So we have rear brakes. Don't know why. Didn't do anything before. Whatever. But rears appear to be dragging, as mentioned. Don't know why. I'll look into that. All right. Ran each one 3 times just to blow out what was immediately in there. Didn't really hardly use much brake fluid. This thing really needs to be a thumb turn. Get the old Bluetooth foot out of here. God damn. Oh, God, why did I save this 50-pound cinder block? Oh, why am I still filming this? We have brakes. Not any worse than they were before, but I think I figured out the stuck problem. It's just that the parking brake's just hanging up. This parking brake seems to be hanging up a bit. And this one appears to be fine. Yeah, this one's perfectly fine. It's a little, well, it's got a little sticky spot. So I think I'm actually going to adjust the parking brake on that side, since this one's basically fine and that one's not. They're asymmetrical, which is not good. So the fact that that one's good and that one's not probably ain't right. So might as well fix that while I'm paying attention to it. There is a flying squirrel just screaming at me over here. I hear you, little bastard. So I'm just gonna come in here and just loosen this up a bit, so long as it complies, and just give this whole housing another 1/4 inch this way, and that should be all it takes. Alrighty, this all appears to be good now. In that one sticky spot. So does this side. So these are now even. So that's a good thing for emergency brakes. And yeah, rear brakes work. I don't know why they didn't work before. I bled the, fronts, but whatever. I digress. We're just gonna put the wheels back on it and pretend that it's good. And then I think all we got is clean that switch up there for the winch. All right, so I unspooled the winch probably about 2/3 of the way, and then I cleaned up all of these contacts over here that I didn't clean up before, and now it works great. So I don't think the switch is the issue. I think it was not getting enough power right here, because it was giving me a bunch of trouble. I cleaned up the contacts. Now it's fine. So good deal. Well, I think that's damn near everything on my short list. All I need to do is put gas in it and run it till I hear the fan turn on. So the only thing in my way right now is 5 gallons of E-free gas. Kind of would like to get this thing done so I could spend all day tomorrow watching anime. So I think Yonder Boat has 5 gallons of E-free gas I just put in the thing. All I need to do is just siphon it out of that gas tank, back into a can, throw it back in there, and we're in business, and we can get this thing figured out tonight. So that's my plan, and that's what I'm about to do. All right, so here's the plan. I'm going to take this can of gum out, which is about 1/3 of it left. We're just gonna pour it right in there into that 5-gallon gas can. Then we're gonna take this 6-gallon boat gas tank, which is plumb full with gas I just put in there like a month ago, and we're just gonna pour that straight into there, and then that straight into there, and then if we're lucky, run this thing all around the block, and our fuel tank sealer epoxy is all perfectly set, and we'll run this thing until we either see that temp light come on or hear a fan whir in there. And as soon as we know that, that's it. We're done. I'm pretty certain. I'll go over the list again, but I think that's it. Alrighty. Here goes nothing. About 2 gallons of gas mixed with gum out. Let's see whether or not this sealant dissolves immediately. Got 115 hours to cure, so please, Jesus, work. Ever mentioned that this filler neck is in a really terrible spot? Why is it not there? Instead of here, where I have to lift the fucking bed to do this? All right, she's all gassed up. Let's just put the cap on and pray. Not more we can do at this point other than fire up, take her for a spin. Here's hoping we don't dissolve all of the sealant out instantaneously and clog everything. That would suck. Don't you do it. All right, here goes nothing. Let's go test run this thing. Very important that I don't lose my beer. Ooh, that's a lot of tranny fluid laying on the ground. All right, see how well my beer holder works. Pretty good. All right, we'll run around and I'll let you know when she runs out of gas. Well, we didn't get very far. So I turned her back around just to grab a spare gas can just to be safe, because I was going to run this thing up to temp, and we ran out of gas over here. So we appear to be leaking gas out of the top of that, so that's not a good sign. And yeah, don't know why the hell the thing didn't prime, but it looks like it has not primed off of this to my best guess. Oh joy, oh great, oh wonderful, wonderful day. Plumb out of gas up here at the carb. So for whatever reason, fuel pump is not pulling fuel through this. I checked, it has air. Yeah, it hadn't melted. I don't know why the fuck it's being a piece of shit right now, but I would prefer if it was not being a piece of shit. It's not pulling gas into there. So I'm just gonna sit here and crank it with the choke on and till it either primes or everything breaks. All right, so plan A is we have the sucky boy hooked up to the fuel filter that's right in front of the carburetor. We're just gonna run this till gas shows up in that fuel filter. Well, the vent works. Well, bad news. Either the pickup tube has rotted off or there is a hole in the pickup tube, because it's not touching fuel. It's about a third of the way full. So that's not good. So I think I have to drill a new fucking pickup tube into this damn fuel tank. Oh, fucking great. Why is there always some fucking bullshit like this? All right, so here is my ad hoc solution I have come up with in about 10 minutes, which is the makeshift seal I had before with a piece of whatever the hell this is, 1/4 inch brake line, 3/16 brake line that was already bent, just stuffed down in it, which goes to about this distance, and then on the end of that is some 5/16 8mm fuel line, which bends up like that, and I have cut thirds out on the bottom of that so that if it happens to bump up against something, it is not pulling a vacuum. And we're just going to go attempt to get those big ass Phillips head screws out of there and slap this thing in here, hook a fuel line up to it, and maybe, just maybe we can get the thing running off of this, and then I can sleep on this and figure out whether or not I want to do something else tomorrow. Probably shouldn't be using plywood on a fuel system, but fuck it, it's 8 at night and I want to watch anime. All right, so here is the thing installed in its final ad hoc configuration. So I've got this extra piece of 5/16 hose on here just to keep this thing from sliding in and out, and then underneath that I've got a piece of inner tube to act as a water shield, because this seal right up in here, which is just a piece of wood, and then under here is another piece of inner tube that is sealed on it, so that'll just act as a water shield to direct water out of the fuel tank. Probably. It's also got a seat on it. Again, I don't consider this to be a final solution, but it is the solution that is getting it tested tonight, hopefully. So that's all hooked up. It's all on there. It's all tight. I've already run out of oil in the hydraulic cylinder, so I just had to go grab that used thing of ATF and fill that back up. So it has run through about a half quart of oil, just running it up and down 5 or 6 times. So those seals are absolutely fucked. Whatever they were hanging on to before is now totally gone. So I'm going to raise this deck as little as I possibly can going forward, and we're just gonna put a little suction on here, and there's fuel. So there we are. That was indeed part of the problem. Likely all of the problem. Oh God, I'm fucking pulling gas into my damn vacuum thing. Let's not do that. Oh shit. It hates when I do that. Anyway, pickup works now. Great, I probably just fucked my vacuum pump. Again. The diesel last time. Okay, she's starting to pull. Alright, I think we have a fuel tank back. Alright, well, let's get this thing back to the slab. And then let's fucking test it. Because I am sick, so we're going for broke. We're just fucking run this thing all over the damn neighborhood. I'm gonna throw as much gas in the back as I can. Alright, so I'm out of beer, I'm out of time, I'm out of patience, and I'm out of things to do to this. I just checked my list, there's nothing else I need to do to it. So I've thrown 2 gallons of pump gas in the back. And we're just gonna slap this sucker in gear and just terrorize the neighborhood and until we hear the fan turn on or I run out of gas. One of the two. Anyway, so fixing to put about 10 miles on this thing. Just drove up to the highway and back, and then to the dead end and back. And coming up on my road in a minute. So by the time we're back, we'll have put 10 miles on it. And not a hitch, you know, knock on 1995 plastic. All right, so back over here, and I don't know about you, but it sure sounds like the radiator fan is running to me. And temp light never came on, so that thing definitely turns on before temp light does. So we'll pull her up here back onto the slab where she belongs. Well, actually, I'm going to clean all that shit off of there first, but we'll just let her sit here and cool off. Also, all these lights now work. Only this one wasn't working before, but now it works. That's cool. And let's see. If I turn this off, yeah, the fan just keeps going. So all right, I think I'm just gonna let it do its thing. No sense cycling the coolant through the radiator because it'll just have to cool the entire engine down, so might as well just let it cool down just the rad. Now I gotta sit around and wait for this thing to stop doing that, and I'm out of beer, so I don't have anything to do. Alrighty, so it only ran for about 5 minutes, so it shut off. It is also like 72 out, so don't know what that would do in the summer. That's really a design flaw. That fan switch, the thing that I replaced on the radiator, really should be the signal wire running to a solenoid, which is what's getting, you know, power from the battery. And that signal wire from the fan switch should be in line with, you know, switched accessory power from the key, so that it only ever sees a signal voltage when the key is on. So you have to be in a hot radiator condition with the key on to then shunt power through a solenoid to the thing, rather than the system that they've currently got set up. But all right, so we got 2 little follow-up items I want to get done today so I can ship this thing back off. So I've decided I can't do squat about these hydraulics. That requires someone who charges a lot more per hour than me to figure out exactly what needs to be fixed on this sucker. But I am hoping I can create something to just put over the top of this pump just to keep water from going down onto the reservoir, even if it's just a grocery bag. Really, I just want something that can just clip over this and just sit over top of this, just to keep rainwater from rolling off the back of this and falling onto it. This sucker right here is supposed to be stopping that, but clearly it's not, although it looks like it should be. For whatever reason, water is still getting into the system, and I assume it has to be through this poor fitment. I mean, how else is it, you know, getting under there? I can't imagine it's going into the piston, which is under all of this, or through the hose fittings. It's got to be the reservoir somehow. So my thought is just to put something over the top of this thing just to keep water out of, you know, the pump itself. So I'll figure out if I got a bucket, piece of plastic, old flap of rubber, or old inner tube or something, just something that I can just clip onto this or onto this that just hangs down over the top of this and just sheets water off. In addition to that, we got to find out a better solution for this than that, because that really was just to get my drunken ass back into the house and to confirm that the fuel tank was fine, because the fuel tank is fine. Sealant has not melted overnight, so that's good. So I've got to figure out something to make that usable again. My current thought is one of two things with 4 potential ultimate solutions. One solution is that. The other solution is drilling a hole right here and just sticking that line over here. Well, a longer piece of line that actually goes all the way down to the bottom right there, which I don't want to do because, like I said, I just spent like 2 to 3 weeks sealing this entire tank. Why am I going to drill a hole in it now? And so my other 2 options involve reusing this guy. Now, option number 1 is I can stick a plastic tube down through there like a catheter and reuse that existing line. But to me, that appears to be a 1/4 inch steel tube, which is then brazed onto a 5/16 copper line. So that would mean bare minimum a 3/16 line going down into there, and I just don't think that has the fuel flow to be able to supply all the fuel through here. I was thinking this was a 5/16 line going into the tank, and then the fact that there are, 1/4 inch fuel filters on here would be the ultimate restriction, but I don't think I'm gonna get away with plastic here. So the only other option I see is cutting this sucker off, like as far away from the tank as I can get without keeping any of that bend, or at least enough that I can flare it out, then dropping like a 1/4 inch outside diameter copper line into there, and then, sealing it right here with some shrink wrap or a piece of tubing, some RTV, all of the above, and then bending that copper line up here and putting flare on it and having that be the new pickup. That would probably be the best option, but I'm really not liking my odds of doing that. I really thought this was 5/16 before I walked out here, but it's 1/4 inch. So, yeah, I don't like that. Like I said, I don't want to drill another hole in this. I can't run a plastic line in here, because if I sleeve that, it's going to be such a massive fuel restriction. And that is that. Plus it disables the fuel gauge. Not that it was really useful at all. Decisions. I gotta mull it over. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to figure out what I can do about that. And I'm gonna mull this over, but I'm probably just gonna end up leaving it as is, because I think that is the best option as far as fuel flow goes. And it doesn't hurt anything. All this does is it just makes there be no fuel gauge. And I can put that in a bag somewhere and put it right back in with no consequences later. So, yeah. Oh, God. All right, so here's my current solution for the hydraulic system. Is I got this big piece of tractor inner tube, which is like, I don't know, 3/32 of an inch thick. And I've just taken this piece of a brake line that I cut yesterday to do, I don't know what. Oh, I used that to mock up the fitting yesterday for the temporary pickup tube. Turn that into a hole punch and cut 3 sets of holes in here. Got 3 little zip ties, and we're going to zip tie this to the wiring harness back behind the hydraulic pump, because that is the easiest thing for me to zip tie anything to. And this is just going to be a little mud flap. It's going to sit just like that right over the top of the pump, and it's just going to direct all the water right off top of the pump. If you need to work on the pump, you just fold this up out of the way. If it really pisses you off, you just cut the zip ties off. So I'm going to cinch that guy in there, and the zip ties are going to go to that wiring harness, because I don't really have anything else to zip tie to, and I'm not drilling holes through metal right now. And again, it's just supposed to be temporary. So yeah, that's my solution. All right, so here that sucker is. You just fold it up out of the way like that when you need to do something to the hydraulic pump, and then you just do that. Goes down there, shields everything, sits right over here. It's heavy duty, vulcanized rubber. The only thing it sits on down here is this coolant line right yonder. It does sit on top of the pump, and it does touch the wires, but again, vulcanized rubber, it's not going to catch fire and melt. If that thing's getting to the point where it's going to burn a tire, it was probably in the process of burning the entire rig down. So, not worried about it. That should keep the vast majority of the water out of the system. There you go. like I said, it's just zip tied to the wiring harness up there. And if you need to get rid of it, just clip the zip ties and it's out. So that's my easy bastardized solution to all this. And hopefully that is the only solution that needs for the life of that pump. Because I can't find the model number, so I can't get parts for it, so I couldn't replace that reservoir seal even if I wanted to. So if you enjoyed this journey, then consider giving the video a like. Comment, tell me if you've got a better solution for fixing that fuel pickup. I don't read those things down there, but go argue with people down there, yell at me or scream. It drives engagement, gets me beer money. And if you want to see more adventures like this with pieces of junk like that, or like that, or like that, or that, or that, or that, or that, or that, or that, any of this garbage that lives in my yard, you gotta subscribe, so smash the gray button down there. Till next time, I'm out.